The leather seats of my father's Tesla felt cold against my back as I sat in the parking lot of Atelier, Silicon Valley's most exclusive restaurant. Through the tinted windows, I watched well-heeled diners enter the establishment, their jewelry catching the light from the ornate entrance fixtures. Minutes earlier, I'd been walking toward those same doors with my family, wearing a designer dress that cost more than most people's monthly salary. But appearance wasn't why I was sitting in the car like a scolded teenager. "Wait in the car," Dad had hissed, his hand firm on my arm. "We need these investors, Samantha. We can't risk anything going wrong." By anything, he meant me. Samantha Rodriguez, the family disappointment, the daughter who'd walked away from the family's investment firm to find herself. At least that's how they painted it. I glanced at my phone. 3 angry texts from my younger sister. "Isabella, how could you embarrass us like this? The Blackwoods are here. Dad's trying to save the firm, and you're being selfish again." The last message made me laugh. If they only knew who really owned Blackwood Industries now. 5 years ago, I'd left Rodriguez Capital Management, refusing to join the family legacy. A phase, Mom had called it. "She'll come crawling back," my brother Carlos had sneered. Instead, I'd built something they couldn't begin to comprehend. My phone buzzed again, this time a different message from my executive assistant. "Blackwood Industries acquisition papers are ready for final signing. Board meets in 30 minutes. Where are you?" I smiled, checking my reflection in the rearview mirror. My father had always said timing was everything in business. He was about to learn how right he was. Stepping out of the car, I straightened my Chanel dress and headed toward the restaurant. The maitre d' recognized me immediately. "Ms. Rodriguez, your usual table?" "Not tonight, Pierre. I believe my family is dining with the Blackwoods." His eyes widened slightly. "Yes, of course. Right this way." As we approached the private dining room, I could hear my father's voice, that smooth tone he used when closing deals. Blackwood Industries would benefit immensely from our expertise. Rodriguez Capital Management has been managing portfolios for 3 generations. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The scene before me froze like a tableau. My father mid-gesture, wine glass in hand. Mom perfectly coiffed, her smile slipping slightly. Isabella and Carlos both looking like they'd swallowed lemons. And across from them, Richard Blackwood Sr., CEO of Blackwood Industries, rising from his chair with a look of surprise. "Ms. President," he said, bowing slightly, "I didn't know this was your family." The silence that followed was deafening. "Richard," I nodded, walking to the empty seat at the head of the table, my father's usual position. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Samantha," Dad's voice was strained. "What are you doing?" "Joining my family for dinner," I replied smoothly, "and meeting with my CEO, apparently." "Your CEO?" Carlos choked on his wine. Richard Blackwood Sr. looked between us, realization dawning. "They don't know." "Know what?" Mom's voice had that dangerous edge. I reached into my Hermes bag and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table to my father. "The papers finalizing Blackwood Industries acquisition. I just need your signature, Richard." "Of course, Ms. President." He reached for his pen. "Stop." Dad's hand slammed down on the folder. "What is this?" "This," I said calmly, "is business. Something you taught me very well, Dad, though perhaps not in the way you intended. The story of how I got here, how I went from family disappointment to owning one of the largest corporate conglomerates in the country, began the day I walked away from Rodriguez Capital Management. But it really started long before that, in the shadow of my father's empire. Growing up, the Rodriguez name meant something in financial circles. Dad had taken his father's investment firm and transformed it into a powerhouse. Every dinner conversation revolved around markets, mergers, and millions. My siblings absorbed it all, eager to claim their predetermined roles. But I saw something they didn't. While they were learning to maintain the old ways, I was watching the future unfold. Tech startups, digital currencies, artificial intelligence. The landscape was changing, but Rodriguez Capital Management remained stubbornly traditional. "The old ways work," Dad would say, dismissing my suggestions for modernization. "We don't chase trends." So I left, took my trust fund, significantly smaller than my siblings' inheritances, and started investing in tech startups. Dad called it gambling. I called it the future. My first big break came with a small AI company developing algorithmic trading systems. While Rodriguez Capital Management relied on human analysts, I bet on machine learning. Within 2 years, my returns were outperforming my father's firm by 300%. But I kept quiet, operating through shell companies and holding corporations. The world knew me only as SR Holdings, a mysterious entity rapidly acquiring tech companies and transforming traditional businesses. When Blackwood Industries announced they were looking for investors, Rodriguez Capital Management saw an opportunity to save their declining portfolio. What they didn't know was that SR Holdings had already acquired a controlling interest through calculated microtransactions over the past year. The acquisition papers are just a formality, I explained to my stunned family. Blackwood Industries has been mine for months. Today just makes it official. Impossible, Carlos sputtered. You couldn't afford. You don't have the resources. SR Holdings, Dad whispered, face pale. Samantha Rodriguez. We've been competing against you this whole time. Not competing, Dad. Winning. Isabella stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is another one of your stunts. You're lying. Richard Blackwood Sr. cleared his throat. I assure you she's not. Your sister has revolutionized our company. Our value has tripled since she began acquiring shares. But you threw away everything, Mom said, her perfect composure cracking. The firm, the family legacy. No, I corrected her. I built something better. While you were all protecting the past, I was investing in the future. I turned to my father, whose hands were trembling slightly as he read through the acquisition papers. Remember when you told me I'd never understand real business? That I was too focused on internet companies instead of real investments. He didn't respond, still staring at the documents that proved how wrong he'd been. Those internet companies now form the largest tech conglomerate in the country. My AI trading systems manage more money in a day than Rodriguez Capital Management handles in a year. And now, I gestured to the papers. I own the company you were desperately trying to impress tonight. The waiter arrived with champagne I'd arranged beforehand, knowing how this evening would unfold. As he poured, I watched my family struggle to process their new reality. What happens now? Dad finally asked, his voice hollow. I picked up my champagne glass, studying the bubbles rising to the surface. Now we discussed the future of Rodriguez Capital Management. After all, I smiled, remembering all the times they dismissed me. I believe in keeping things in the family. The morning after the dinner at Atelier, I sat in my penthouse office on the 60th floor of what was once Blackwood Tower, now Rodriguez Innovation Center. The Bay Area sparkled below, fog rolling beneath the Golden Gate Bridge as the sun rose. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since last night. 37 missed calls from family members, countless texts, and several desperate emails from Rodriguez Capital Management's board members. News travels fast in financial circles, and the revelation that SR Holdings was owned by the wayward Rodriguez daughter had sent shockwaves through Wall Street. Your brother is in the lobby, my AI assistant Aria announced through the office speakers. He's demanding to see you. Shall I have security escort him out? I checked the security feed. Carlos looked disheveled, his usually impeccable suit wrinkled, his hair uncombed. A far cry from the polished managing director of Rodriguez Capital Management. Let him up, I decided. And Aria, pull up the latest valuation reports for Rodriguez Capital Management. Carlos burst into my office minutes later, clutching a newspaper. The headline read, Tech Titan Samantha Rodriguez reveals identity. SR Holdings acquires Blackwood Industries in historic deal. How long? He demanded, throwing the paper on my desk. How long have you been plotting this? I gestured to the visitor's chair. Sit down, Carlos. You look terrible. Don't patronize me. But he sat anyway, running a hand through his messy hair. Dad hasn't slept. The board is in chaos. Our clients are calling nonstop asking about the rumors. What rumors? That you're planning to dissolve Rodriguez Capital Management. That this whole thing was revenge. I pulled up a holographic display showing real-time market data. Look at these numbers, Carlos. Your client portfolio has been declining for 3 years. Your technology is outdated. Your methods are obsolete. We have tradition. Tradition doesn't make money. I cut him off. While you and Dad were clinging to old methods, I built an empire using artificial intelligence, blockchain, and predictive analytics. The world changed, but Rodriguez Capital Management didn't. So you're destroying us? Your own family. I stood, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows. Remember when I was 16 and I presented my first investment strategy to Dad? I'd spent weeks researching emerging tech companies, creating detailed analysis models. You laughed and called it my cute little project. Carlos shifted uncomfortably. We were kids. No, you were the golden child, and I was the dreamer. When I suggested modernizing the firm's approach, Dad shut me down. When I warned about the rise of algorithmic trading, you all dismissed me. So yes, I left, but I didn't set out to destroy anything. I set out to build something better. My phone buzzed. Isabella was here too. Send her up? I told Aria. Isabella entered more cautiously than Carlos had, her designer heels clicking on the marble floor. Her eyes widened at the state-of-the-art office, taking in the holographic displays and the panoramic view. This is impressive, she admitted. Sit down, Isabella. We need to talk about the future of Rodriguez Capital Management. She joined Carlos on the visitor's couch, both of them looking lost in the gleaming temple of modern finance I'd built. First, I pulled up another holographic display. Let me show you what real innovation looks like. The air filled with streaming data, AI-driven market predictions, and real-time trading algorithms. My siblings watched as billions of dollars moved through our systems. This is what I try to bring to the family firm. This is what Dad rejected. We get it, Carlos snapped. You're successful. You prove your point. What do you want? I want to save Rodriguez Capital Management. They stared at me. But only, I continued, if you're willing to change. Really change. Before they could respond, Aria announced another visitor. Dad walked in slowly, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Gone was the commanding presence, the unwavering confidence. He carried a thick folder, documents I recognized from my childhood. Your proposals, he said quietly, placing the folder on my desk. Every innovation you suggested, every modernization plan you presented. I kept them all. Dad, I was wrong, he interrupted. I was so focused on preserving what my father built that I couldn't see the future right in front of me. Couldn't see what you could become. Isabella stood up. What are you saying? I'm saying, Dad took a deep breath, that Rodriguez Capital Management needs Samantha. Not as an enemy, but as its leader. Carlos jumped up. What? But I'm managing director. The succession plan. The succession plan was wrong. Dad cut him off. Look around you, Carlos. Your sister built this while we weren't watching. She turned her trust fund into a tech empire. Meanwhile, our firm is bleeding clients and falling behind. I pressed a button, darkening the windows and activating a large screen. Let me show you something. Charts appeared showing Rodriguez Capital Management's declining performance alongside SR Holdings' meteoric rise. In 5 years, I explained, my company has achieved what Rodriguez Capital Management couldn't in 3 generations. Not because I'm smarter, but because I was willing to evolve. So what's your plan? Isabella asked quietly. A complete transformation. Rodriguez Capital Management becomes a subsidiary of SR Holdings. We integrate my AI systems, modernize your operations, and retrain your team. And us. Carlos's voice was small. You have choices to make, I said. You can fight this change and watch the firm die slowly, or you can learn, really learn. Start from the bottom, understand the new technology, earn your positions. Dad sat heavily in a chair. And me, you'll be chairman emeritus. Advisory role only. It's time to let go, Dad. He nodded slowly, years of resistance crumbling in the face of undeniable reality. There's one condition, I added. No more family hierarchy. No more dismissing ideas because they're new or different. We build this together, or not at all. The silence stretched as they considered my offer. Outside, the sun had fully risen, painting the city in golden light. Finally, Isabella spoke. Teach me everything you know about the new systems, the technology. I want to learn. Carlos looked between us, then at the displays showing his sister's success. Me too. I want to understand. Dad stood, walking to the windows. I spent years trying to force you all into roles I chose. Samantha, you were the only one brave enough to refuse, to find your own path. He turned back to us. Maybe it's time we all found new paths. I pressed another button, bringing up the contracts I'd had prepared. Welcome to the future of Rodriguez Innovation Group. One by one, they signed not just contracts, but a new beginning. A transformation of not just our business, but our family. 6 months later, I stood in the same office, watching Carlos present his first AI-driven investment strategy. Isabella had mastered blockchain technology and was revolutionizing our client relations. Dad, freed from the burden of control, had become a valued advisor, his experience finally balanced with innovation. The old Rodriguez Capital Management sign had been replaced with a sleek new logo, Rodriguez Innovation Group, a division of SR Holdings. But more importantly, the old family dynamics had been replaced too. My phone buzzed. A message from Dad. Family dinner tonight. Your choice of restaurant this time. I smiled, remembering that night at Atelier. Yes, I typed back, and this time everyone has a seat at the table. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what hurt you. It's transforming it into something better. Something that could only exist because you were strong enough to walk away, smart enough to build something new, and generous enough to bring everyone along when you succeeded. The future belonged to those brave enough to create it. And finally, my family was ready to join me.